Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scousers Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser on a Friday morning. I don't know why I'm looking at the date to see what date it is, but I did anyway. And it's reckless time. And we are reckless as always, flying solo this morning. Obviously, you guys saw the podcast last night. Good show last night. Actually, only was able to catch a part of it. I'll probably watch the rest of it tonight with the Bolt crew. Kaziam was on with the gang. A lot to talk about this morning. Unfortunately, I was really hoping that we would have other stuff to talk about, but we normally, I mean, regulars of Friday know we normally talk about the press conference, the pre-match press conference, of like some of the things we said, that was said, and then we kind of like look at the lineups. The lineups don't really matter, so the focus was going to be mainly the press conference this morning, and it was sadly nothing but Trent for the most part. So that was kind of so. I guess we're gonna have to talk about Trent. I was really hoping we would have a morning where we don't have to use his name or talk about him or anything like that. But looking like it will be about him. Some interesting quotes coming out of that. Press conference. I just literally watched it prior to going online. Serzi, Alan, good morning, gentlemen. How are we doing? Okay, so a couple of the things that came out, obviously, and I do hope this too. Like we've had a lot of talk, and I'm not going to go into the whole thing about, you know, should he have been booed, but like I'm not going to all that. I think we kind of like talked about the death, and I'm pretty sure if you're following the channel, you know where everybody stands on. And I think, like it changes from person to person, like how we view it, what we're okay with, what we're not okay with. And I think that's why you saw, have the stadium booing and stuff like that. Everybody is in a different spot when it comes to this and is going to evaluate differently. Some people are going to give it more benefit of the doubt, some people are not. It is what it is. I mean, that's like, so like no need to, I think, talk a lot about that, as it does not, like I say, I don't think anything new is going to be said about that topic. We've all said what we felt in terms of him being booed. I think the hope is, and a lot of the questions are coming that way. No one cared as much about mood being destroyed in that game, but I think we care a lot more about the mood being destroyed in this game. Similar to, I mean, this is kind of like, Spurs 2.0 kind of a game over there, which we'll talk about that final a little bit as well, by the way. But yeah, I think, in terms of that, there's a sense that nobody wants this environment, the positive mood spoiled with any Trent thing. That's why I think a lot of the questions are coming up about, like, what's going to happen and all that. Um, so over this Trent thing, we're bigger than him. Let's talk about contracts. Yeah, right. I mean, the problem is, yeah, most of the press conference was ended up being about Trent, because I think most of the questions are about that in terms of how he feels it's going to be affected. I think Slot is where I'm at, where I think he's hoping that it's out of the system. Like people know, people already had their say. And I think Trent knows where people stand at this point. You kind of like see him after those, like the celebrations after the Brighton game. We talked about it the other day on Wednesday when we looked at that photo and stuff. So I think he knows where he stands. There's no point in doing it further, but he will not get, probably. It'll be interesting if like he gets his song from the fans, but I don't think he's gonna get like an over the top negative reaction. I Not because people's feelings have changed about Trent, but I think it's more about people do not want to spoil the day and don't want to let Trent, I guess I should say, or his situation spoil the day. So it'll be a more conscious effort, I think, on the parts of the fans not to let it impact the celebrations, rather than people's feelings suddenly changing over the last like 2 weeks or whatever. But whatever the reason, I do hope like it's kind of like out of the system and we just celebrate the title and stuff like that and do not have to worry about, like booing him and stuff like that. And they were asking him, if he would take part in the game. That'll be an interesting thing. Maybe depends on how the game goes. It might almost be smart to throw him in there for like 5 minutes to gauge the reaction before the game ends. But I don't know. I just hope not. It should be more of like a party day than anything else. Serzi and Brian, good morning, gentlemen. Here's another thing, though. By the way, about the game, going back to the game real quick, we will do a live watch along for the game. So we'll be on maybe like 10, 15 minutes from pre-match because really there's not too much to analyze tactically and all that kind of stuff. But we will go off air immediately after the final whistle, so that kind of like I don't think anybody needs us or any watch along for the trophy lifting. So we will be on air, and then we will go basically as soon as the match ends. We'll high five and we'll go out, and everybody can enjoy like the trophy celebrations and all that kind of stuff. So we will be doing that. That's the game plan for Sunday. So we'll be on probably like 50 minutes before kickoff over here and throughout the game. Don't know who yet, but there'll definitely be people here, so we can hopefully celebrate all together. Trent or not, will be able to celebrate the title over there. Wouldn't have him dress out, says Brian. I don't know. I'm kind of like torn on that one in terms of like because of the situation. I was thinking like you throw him out there for 5 minutes and you're like, let's see what's going on, kind of thing, and like gauge the reaction that you're going to be. Oh, that's right. Happy early birthday. Yeah, yeah, I mean it's exciting days, so you don't want to really spoil it with all this like Trent talk. Having said that, it was interesting that he said because last time he was asked this question, he did say that they haven't had a lot of talks about all this stuff. He made it sound like they have had a lot more talks now, and mentioned that like he was in his office and stuff. And then he kind of initially, I don't know if that was a slip or not, but the fact that, they've had a lot of these meetings early on in the season as well. So now we all knew, because this was talked about, when Trent's defensive work was slightly better than usual early in the season. And then, there was all that talk about Trent, Slot talking to him and saying, like, if you turn your ass 3 degrees this way or whatever, and that showed him some things that he can really improve on. I remember this was probably, I don't know, like you guys tell me, like December, January, somewhere around there, right? Maybe like November, December, where, his defensive play, even I admittedly said, was better than normal. And well, like the normal levels, I guess, that we're used to. And it was kind of like given to that. So, like Slots improved them defensively. They had a chat and stuff like that. So we kind of knew about all these chats. What came out today was he says, I wasn't completely happy with every single moment on the training ground. So they had some meetings like in his office about that. So now I don't know. We are obviously going to take this a lot differently than when Mo talked about this. So it as simple as what they did with Mo, because Mo mentions that that's something that Slot showed him early in the preseason when he showed him how everybody's pre-match workout changes because of his attitude. Slowly everybody becomes Mo, whereas in the beginning everybody is a lot more like energetic and like doing it properly, giving 100% to the warm-up. And then because like Mo is kind of like going through the motions, everybody by the end of the warm-up everybody is Mo, kind of a thing. So I know so our reaction, everybody's reaction to this is going to be totally different to that. He did mention though it was a couple like like they had a bunch of sit downs, kind of a thing. And the training ground is different obviously than like the pre-match warm-up that he told Mo about. But in my opinion, he could do a lot more. To say it mildly, is I don't know if that's kind of like the lost in translation kind of thing, but like I take it as, yeah, he was not happy with what he was seeing. I honestly like really liking this entire scenario now to the Coutinho ordeal, where it didn't, well, that one worked out a lot better. I guess we got the money, but I think it has, like, I almost feel Slot is like semi happy with how things panned out at the end with 2 of the 3 that he really wanted and needed and felt like had the high level of professionalism kept. And then I said this at the time, where like behind the scenes, club was probably like, actually, this is probably better for all of us when Coutinho was like leaving. So I find it in a similar tone because of the way he said it. See, this is an interesting point. I'm not sure. While I appreciate Sloan's bluntness, do you think there's a chance that there's a negative reaction to players closer to Trent? I don't think so. Because if you notice, like he didn't want to say it in the beginning, but then it was like, well, he's leaving anyway, so I guess there's no need to hide it anymore, kind of a deal. And he kind of spilled the beans. He could have probably said the opposite, right? He's leaving anyway, so there's no point in talking about it. He could have probably done that, and we'd be fine. We talk about this all the time. Like when managers are honest and give us what we want to know, you know, we sometimes criticize them, and then if they didn't, we would criticize them as well. So I don't think so, because I would think that this was not something that is news to the players. It's only news to us. I don't think it's news to the players. In any work environments, when somebody is called to the boss's office, and especially if it is not the norm and does not sound like it usually is when you have these sit down talks and stuff like that, especially like regularly as he made it sound. I think everybody already knows, and everybody probably like understands the what's behind it. And I honestly, maybe we are now reading more into it as we watch the games. I do see, and I think we've seen a couple of death stares by Van Dijk and stuff like that this season. Look, we've seen a lot of death stares or like yelling and stuff that he does to Robertson over time too. But I felt like, this season, maybe we were reading a lot more into it than normal. Those were different. The death stares he gave Trent were a bit more different, because it was a bit more of a better, or you're not even trying kind of a look, as opposed to like the yelling and stuff he always does with Robertson on his own side. So I don't think so. To answer Mateusz's question, I don't think it affects players, because I think they already know. We're the ones who just found this out. I think they were already in the know about this, that he was told this and stuff like that. Because especially if it's your buddies. I mean, you come out of the meeting, you're like, dude, what was that all about? And then it's like he says, I don't do this. Well, what I mean, like those conversations happen. I mean, just because these guys are professional players, I don't think he walks out and tells Robertson, no need to know, it's my business, or anything like that. So I'm sure it is talked about. And I don't know, nobody loves getting the criticism, but it feels like, when these are presented, I'm sure they're presented a lot better based on the player and stuff like that, is how you receive it. And if you thought already too highly of himself, as we know, like Trent does, but we know Mo does too. So it's a matter of like a player really wanting to hear what needs to make him better, or some players just need to hear the good stuff. But I don't think it affects the other players, because I think they already no. The airing it publicly part, yeah, I'm kind of torn on that, because I think, like I say, he could have sidestepped it, and he could have just said, hey, we're gonna, no need to talk about that now. He's leaving anyway, and then move on. But he didn't. And maybe kind of like similar to what he did last week, man. He still sent him over there to warm up. He still dressed him. Like I think like Brian was asking earlier in the comments what the point of that was. Maybe he just did that as well to kind of like prove a point. Because here's the thing, and we're not going to find this out, right? Even next season after he's gone, we're not going to find out. First of all, like you're saying, he does have a lot of friends on this team that have been his teammates for so many years. Not only that, it's going to be like too fresh, but I think 5 to 10 years from now, we will find out more about how the rest of the squad felt about this whole entire thing. I know, like over here in the American sports, like there's like almost this semi everybody takes care of their contract business and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, when people hold out before the season, all that kind of stuff. It's always almost like part of the norm. So it's taken as regular, and everybody knows how to react, because it happens every freaking off season. Like somebody doesn't show up to training camp, blah blah blah. Like, so it happens all the freaking time. So I feel like there's already a code established in American sports in terms of how the players handle somebody else's contract negotiations and stuff. It's not as prevalent, maybe because its number of players are a lot less, for example, than American football or something like that. But it's not as spoken, and it's not as common, I think, in the world of like soccer/football. So I think we're gonna find out more about what the players' thoughts overall and how this was handled and how it went down and all that. So it will be interesting to see like what comes out of it. So yeah, we will find out. Like I said, we're not going to find out for 5 to 10 years, though. Let's go back to the comments real quick. Yeah, looking forward to Van Dyke autobiography that comes out. Yeah, it's gonna be in there. It's gonna be in there, and it's weird. I think I was talking about it on like the Discord channel, which if you're not on, I'll shoot a invite over here right away. But so that you can kind of like join the conversation because we do talk about a lot of stuff over here. But I think it's odd because I don't think any of us saw this coming in terms of let me send this link over here. So if you're watching us live right now and you are not, or if you're watching it afterwards and you're not on Discord, I mean, anything from movies and crap to other stuff, we do talk about in there. So feel free to hop on. But anywho, it's odd because I don't know, saying this time last year. This time last year, we probably didn't want to think about it, but like throughout fall and stuff like that, they should take a health check. Yes, I honestly think it's good therapy at times as well. But sometimes it's negative therapy. You almost gotta avoid it. Depends on the mood. Depends on who's online. Depends on the conversations going on. But I think in terms of being able to like foresee what's gonna happen when you go back to I don't know, man. Like go back to like September or so. I don't think you would ever think of how things panned out the way they panned out. I don't think this was, on one side, Van Dyke is getting a brand new mural over there. And then on this side, we're talking about all this like trans stuff and all that. I don't think any of us saw this coming, especially the way it unfolded. Even if I asked you, I mean, I think there were a lot of people saying like, this guy signs, but this guy has gone. And I think for the most part, most of us being optimistic more than anything else. Like we didn't have anything concrete, but we kind of saw the writing on the wall with Trent. But we said, Van Dijk and Mo will sign, but nobody knew for sure. But I think going back to September, October, I don't think anybody saw where we would be at. Well, definitely by winning the title by 3 weeks to go, that's another thing. But 4 weeks ago, but in terms of like how it all unfolded and the reaction and stuff like that, I don't think any of us saw this coming at all. So and really, he doesn't have anybody to blame by himself, man. Like, really does not. I don't feel. I mean, we're talking about on Wednesday. I see that photo. The only thing that hurts is I think it hurts because we're losing something too. We're losing a good moment, right? As opposed to, and it's affecting it's bringing some kind of negativity. It did to that Arsenal game. We're worried about. I mean, we would not be worried about this at all. I am slightly worried that it will like dampen the whole ordeal on Sunday, or like how awkward the parade will be and stuff like that. I mean, it's just going to be awkward regardless. Even if there's no negative reaction, there's going to be a lot of like, what's going to happen? Like, like a tense moments at all times. That would not be there. So I think, that's being taken away from us for one. And aside from that, I don't know, like you would like to see your guys. I mean, we talked about, some of these guys, like especially like newer fans in the US and stuff like that, saw this team and Trent was part of it and stuff like that. So like having somebody leave like that, it's odd though, because I think again, we see it a lot more in American sports. So I've noticed that American fans don't take it as well like what as opposed to fans over there, because this is more of like their like childhood hero, the city hero. He's the local kid and stuff like that. You don't get that as much over here, and we do get a lot of like stars eventually leaving or being dumped or whatever. So I think it's a bit easier to take for us, and it's not as awkward because we've been there, done that. But I think it is like overall the situation itself is going to be awkward. I mean, I'd rather not have it in the mix. I don't think any of us would. I don't think any of us wanted to talk about it for the last freaking like 2-3 weeks. And I don't think anybody wanted to even have it be a part of all the trophy celebrations and stuff like that. We just want a party, right? You don't want to like a party pooper walking around. So, and and it's all on him. So I do not feel bad for him. So let the record show that I do feel bad, I think, for the fans mostly, maybe a tiny bit for him because he has contributed to this title run, and he's a part of the success. But overall, I feel more bad for the rest of the team who's having to deal with this, who's having to answer questions and just deal with the awkwardness overall, and have to stick up for their teammates and stuff like that, while maybe not agreeing themselves on how it went down. But aside from that, I do feel bad for the fans for losing out on the experience that would normally be 100%. We would never talk about this. It was like all nothing but, trophy lift and parade plans right now, as opposed to this conversation. I think, if he was asked 10 questions, I think 3 or 4 were like Trent related in the press conference. So I'm almost I almost feel like everybody's going to be relieved when it's done. The game itself will be interesting because you do have a Palace team that's also in a semi-party mode as well. But they did play a game and they did win midweek. So there's that, I guess they played, but then we've been like partying for the last 4 weeks. So it's kind of hard to tell how the game will go overall. We know McAllister is not going to be there, and that's like a huge loss in that midfield whenever that happens, to be honest with you. And I think when we talk about off-season plans, everybody's jumping over this midfield, man, which really, really worries me. We talk about this back line, all these fullbacks and stuff like that, and then everybody jumps over that midfield, and we start talking about like who the number 9 is going to be and all that. I really think we have to do something with the midfield and get more depth. I mean, is Bajcetic that guy? I don't think so, but you have to add somebody to that mix who can do what McAllister does, because you can kind of really, really see the void when he's not there. So you need somebody. He's almost like I've been saying this for like a few months now, but he's almost like a point guard in basketball in there. Like he can kind of control the pace. He knows when to kick it. He knows when to control. I see. I don't think Wirtz is that guy. I really don't think he is. Defensively, I don't think he's not. And I think Wirtz has like one speed, like, or one mode. What I like about McAllister is he kind of almost can see and gauge the game and decide which gear the team should be on. And I'm talking about in terms of like, you know what, let's keep possession for a second over here, or let's go. And he knows when to make those runs into the box and stuff like that. I mean, not only that, I think there's a great understanding when it comes to pushing up or dropping back and like filling in for each other and shifting around the midfield, like things that are like not normally seen because it might not be around the ball and stuff like that. I think those three have like a really good dynamic going. We need more players to be able to be successful on a consistent basis and not run the legs off of these guys. So will it happen? I don't know. We will find out, but it will be interesting to see if they address that or if they're going to be content with like what we have over there. If we get Frimpong and Kirkes, we need center back, maybe. It will look like Gomez is going to get some minutes, by the way. I do take that away from the pre-match press conference, which will be great to see. I mean, he's one of my favorites in terms of attitude and how he carries himself. And he talked a lot about how Gomez is a part of the team even when he's hurt and not playing, even if he's not on the pitch, how he affects the team overall and stuff like that. So that was good to hear. And I do hope like he comes back and he's healthy and stuff. And I know how many times have we said that, but he's a guy who is very easy to root for. Let's put it that way. We need center back, defensive midfield, number 10 and number 9. I don't know. You just like got an entire new midfield if you get a CDM and a number 10. I mean, I think he will be. I mean, physically, yes. Price tag, that would be interesting. The hard thing about that is like if you're trying to get everybody minutes, the goalie is like a really difficult person to get minutes on, unless like he does a sub in the last 5 minutes and puts in, like I say, Gomez and then Keller or something like that. It really depends on how the game is going and when you use your subs and stuff like that. But going about, yeah, Abdul is playing FIFA, so as he says. I mean, yeah, that's a lot. But here's what I understand: like fans say they want these players. If we don't sign the expensive players, then it's like FSG is cheap we're not signing, players to improve us. When we do go after players, everybody finds the price tag too high. I just don't understand. There's no happy medium over here. Like, do you only want world class players who are 30 million or less? Because that does not exist. So if you are going to get a guy like Wars, who is like a generational talent, really, he is, and he's very young. What is he, like 22 or something like that? You almost have to do that. I mean, you have to pay. I mean, it's part of like the whole deal. Like when we did, yeah. I mean, um, we did spend the Bellingham money on work, but what did people say at the time? What did people say? That we didn't go for, like it was more of a disappointment. We didn't take it as, like, oh, we got world class players. And mind you, I mean, McAllister was a deal, and we kind of like fell backwards, to like the Gravenberg ordeal being perfect for the midfield and stuff like that. But I mean, Szoboszlai was a lot of money. Szoboszlai was not cheap at all. So it's not a cheap signing at all. I mean, if that's what you want instead, a couple of like two $60 million signings instead of 120 million signing. I get that, but if you're going to improve this team the way it is right now, you almost have to spend the money. So if anybody has money, Rian, speaking of money, dude, really, like, you came here to say that's kind of, yeah, that's not gonna happen. Sorry, I don't think so. But if you do, I mean, if you're following on his Facebook, you can kind of send him over there. We were linked with it. Wasn't thinking of about worse. Yeah, because I think I'm still not, dude. I'm not. Don't even get me started on the worst thing, because I'm still like got the defensive mechanism going. I'm almost thinking like it will not be happening, so that it doesn't. It's not a disappointment when it doesn't happen. I still think, it will be a Bayern move. It says a Bayern move all over. It's the fact that Leverkusen have not sold to them is one thing, but it's all about money at the end of the day. I almost feel like they will want more from Bayern, and I would not blame them, because then they have to play against them all the time as opposed to sending him to us. From what I hear, and I like Fabrizio was talking about it yesterday and stuff too, it's more on what he wants. And I've said this before. I know for us, Liverpool is the easier choice, but for Words, I don't know if it's a lot safer bets. We talked about a little bit about this Monday nights. Gally was talking about his like upbringing and his family and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if it is more likely for him and easier, more safe, without anything to lose if he goes to Bayern. He's still competing for trophies all the time. He's still, in the Champions League, probably advancing because they get the rest and stuff like that. So going to Bayern, I don't think we can. And he's in Germany still. He's still home, if you will, as opposed to taking a whole new adventure, going to a different league, going to a different country. I think we kind of assumed like, oh, they make a lot of money. What's the big deal and stuff? But it's a huge life change, and I don't know if Wirtz will be convinced to do that unless he has something really going against Bayern. But I think, Bayern is almost like the, okay, Rian, man, you're out. I, it's almost like their Real Madrid, Barcelona kind of thing. I think kids who grew up in Germany do want to eventually play there. It's kind of like the pinnacle, if you will. So I can see why they would, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. What's going to happen to Owen Beck? Yeah, who knows, really. And the problem is, you just wanted several people signed. Well, that doesn't leave any room for these people. So if we sign another 4 or 5 players that can play on the squad, mind you, there'll be some people who are going. Naturally. Elliot has talked that kind of like the whole tune of what Elliot has said over time has changed. He is sounding more like a guy who's thinking that, he might have to go somewhere to get like a fair shot, more minutes, and like a realistic chance. Because here's the thing, I mean, if you sign a Words over there, if I'm like, Elliott. So I'd be like, as Worst is coming in the front door, I would be like leaving out the back door saying, hey, I mean, now I'm not getting any minutes over here, kind of a deal. So, and I'm sure talks have been done between Slot and Elliott and all that, but in terms of like future plans, but we don't know who's going to come in the summer. So it will be things as of now, not what has changed over summer. We do know Keller will be leaving. I mean, I'm reading more and more, like with interviews coming from Marmalade over there, Mamardashvili, basically saying like, he doesn't want another loan move. And he's talking like a guy who's content with sitting behind Ali. So, and that's fine. I think that's like a good scenario over there. Bring him over here. He will get his like League Cup games. Basically, he will be Kelleher, and then you will be able to cash in from Kelleher. How much? I don't know. It will be interesting to see like how much we get for him. I can think of at least 2-3 Premier League teams who can use a goalie like Kelleher. I am not on this Kelleher as a top 3 goalie kind of a thing, because I don't think have seen enough of a sample size consistently to see that. And within that size, he has done really well, and he's a huge part of the title success this year. I think we forget that, all of these people talking about like Liverpool didn't have any injuries. Liverpool lost their starting goalie for like month and a half, 2 months or something like that. But we didn't skip a beat, and that's credit to Kelleher, credit to squad planning, all that kind of stuff. So Elliott would be perfect for Spurs. Oh, that's interesting, actually. I mean, yeah, and that's how that unfolded is crazy, by the way. And I think we were all, we talked about this, that we were all kind of like rooting for Spurs. And I am glad that they did win at the end, because it does really put United in a miserable, miserable hole. I mean, I was listening to, I think it was like Goldbridge who was talking about this. I mean, just imagine, if you're out of the Champions League for, let's say, like 3 seasons, you are falling behind someone like Liverpool, or even if it's Spurs and like Arsenal and City and stuff, you are behind automatically by like 300 to 500 million that you have to make up somehow. So you have to be very, very, very right with the players you get. I mean, that's how Liverpool was able to kind of get out of that hole. All those like smaller signings we did turned into gold. It's almost like, in the NFL, all your 7th round picks becoming like, all pros and stuff like that, because you need to be able to get really top players by not spending much. And that's not really a huge possibility. Brentford's Brighton. I was actually thinking more. I'm assuming this is for Kelleher, or are we talking Elliott here? Because this sounds like a good list for Elliott, not for Kelleher. Because I mean, for Kelleher, I was thinking like West Ham is going to need a goalie, Villa is now going to need a goalie, but I would think, for example, Villa will look for more of a top goalie compared to Kelleher. That's my take, but. Take over for Leno at Fulham. That's another team. Bournemouth, because I think Kepa is on loan, isn't he? And I don't know if they will sign Kepa long term. So there's like definitely possible destinations over there for him to go to. But how much, I don't know, like the 35, I don't know. Edwards does get some serious money for these outgoings, so do have faith in that. But it doesn't help the cause where everybody knows, like, he wants out, he's going to go. So dude, if Chelsea get one more goalie, they already have like freaking 7 goalies over there. Just like make up your freaking mind. They definitely do need a goalie, though. That's the funny thing. I mean, they have like 7 goalies, and they still do actually need a goalie. Okay, so for Elliott, Spurs, Brentford, and Brighton, says Brian, which I think is that's a kind of like a good list overall for him. Yeah, Elliott will find a spot for himself where he plays regularly, I think. I only think because as good of a player he is, I think one of his biggest values is like how he was working in the system, like how well he knew the system and what needed to get done. Obviously, that kind of goes out the door when you go to another team and you go to another system. You can argue that, like he's a really smart player, understands the system and what needs to get done. But some of it is familiarity too, because he's been in the system for like quite some time now. And when he comes on the pitch, his familiarity with the other players and all that kind of stuff, you can kind of see that's a huge part of why he makes an impact. he's going to lose some of that when he goes to a new club. It's going to at least take time to kind of like rebuild. So it will be interesting to see like how he ends up. I mean, that's a guy that I think we will all root for in his career moving forward, right? Just because of the personality he is and the kid that he is and stuff like that, and then the way he would be leaving if he does leave. I do think he is leaving. I think for his good, he probably should be leaving for the long term as well, especially if we're bringing new players in for midfield. He's going to get like even less minutes. So how quick are we going to offload these players? How quick are we going to buy key players? I'm really hoping that this first window we bring 2 to 3 key players in. I think the offload would be in the second phase of the transfer market, not in the first one, because I think you need to see what Elliot. I think is a perfect example of a player, right? So if you're, if Wirtz happens, for example, you bring Wirtz in, and then maybe you're like, bringing another like defensive midfielder, and well, now okay, Elliot is definitely going to move and maybe the price you ask for Elliot changes as well, right? If he is really valuable and maybe part of your plan, you might be asking for 30, 35, and you might be okay with like 25, 30. If he's not, like you need to offload him anyway, he's not going to get minutes. How valuable he is to you changes based on who you can bring in and who's on your squad. So, but knowing how Liverpool normally does business, I do anticipate us to kind of take care of some of the business early, get some signings in. That it's looking likely that it will be Frimpong. I'd probably wait until the parade is over to announce anything, which is fine because you don't want to really take away from what's being done and the players who want it and everything like that. But if they do the, let's say Frimpong, Kirkes, and maybe Wirtz, if it happens, then I think you kind of like sits, and then in the second phase you bring 1 or 2 other players in. But it really depends on how happy Slot is with the center back. Everybody keeps saying center back. I don't know if he's happy with it. Depends on what's going to happen with Konate, because if he's not signing an extension, do we like sell him and actually cash in off of him and bring another center back in? There's a lot of like variables that kind of like goes into how they will approach the second phase. And I think that's why you kind of do the first phase, the tournament happens, and then when you come back, you kind of like approach the second phase. Maybe you get a couple of those opportunity transfers and stuff like that. So it'll be a very rare transfer season that I'm looking forward to. The only thing I didn't like is it kind of like started a little bit too early for my liking. But if you take care of business early after the parade over here, get a couple of signings across the line, it also shows intent. I think that's probably like the biggest thing. It kind of sets you off for the second time the market opens, because you have shown what your intentions are, and you're not going to like kind of like sit on your laurels as champion, but you're looking to improve even further. I think it's a huge statement move in terms of that. Mr. Moses will definitely bring Sandrex in. I mean, if we're bringing him in, then you are definitely moving 1 or 2, right? So it depends on who you're moving. I mean, is it going to be Gomez? Is it going to be Kwanzaa? If he doesn't sign an extension, is it going to be Konate? And I think the guy you bring depends on who's leaving or who you're replacing and stuff like that. So I don't know. Like, I would not be terribly upset if we went into the new season with the same center backs. I don't know if you guys would be. Like, if we enter the new season with the same 4, because Gomez will be back in the equation, I would not be upset. I would not be like worried. I mean, I've been worried about Gomez's health. I guess that's a fair thing to say, but I would not be like up in arms like we need the center back and we didn't get it kind of thing. People want, and then they'll in week 3 when somebody gets injured, they'll say that. Kwanzaa and Gomez is leaving. Yeah, he talked very, very highly of Gomez today, and then he did talk very highly of Kwanzaa, like in the last press conference. That could be to increase their price. So, like you're saying, Mr. Moses, maybe he's looking to sell them, and they're like, these guys are great, kind of a thing. Or it could be, setting it up because they're part of the plans. But here's the thing: we always think of the club, right? And who's going to start, who's going to be the backup and stuff. You kind of have to think of, especially those 2 names with Kwanzaa and Gomez, do they want to go somewhere where they're going to play? And I think that's like a little bit more something that you have to bear in mind, especially a player like Gomez. Will he want to go? The only problem with Gomez leaving is probably he's not leaving at a high value. And I do feel because of the servant he's been to the club, Liverpool will not make the price a sticking point for Gomez staying as much. So I do hope he stays. I really love Gomez, and I think it gives you kind of like cover for right back, left back, like things he can do, positions he can play. I do really hope that Gomez stays. He's even played like defensive midfield and stuff like that. So I do hope he does stick around. So, but a game coming up on Sunday. Really more like we're waiting for the trophy, aren't we? Like the game is kind of like it's almost like a pre-match, the first act that will be there to watch it, but we're really waiting for the second part, the trophy lift and stuff like that. So it'll be a fun Sunday, though. Get ready for it. Nothing happening on Saturday. There is actually a great game on Saturday if you are looking to see who's coming up to the Premier League. Sheffield Sunderland is on Saturday, I believe, noon, I think, my time. So that's a good game to watch. I did watch the Sunderland Cardiff game, and I thought that was like really, really, that was a really, really fun watch. You could tell, you could sense the knowing how much money is on the line and what is on the line. It almost feels bigger than a trophy because it defines your club for next 3 to 5 years in some ways. That's why I felt like the Europa final was probably like one of the most interesting ones we watched. Because first of all, it was entertaining to watch a shit show of these two teams who are like literally a shit show, and you can clearly tell why they are where they are in the Premier League. But you could also see, especially for United, the importance because he was going. I mean, it kind of like shapes your next 3 to 5 years as a club in the Premier League because you have to, especially since you are 16, 17. I think it's one thing if you're already like second and you don't need to spend a ton of money as well. But if you're already on the bottom of the league, it's crucial that you go into the Champions League to bring money and to bring players, and not being able to do it really leaves United in misery. And really, I'm here for it every freaking day. I mean, we were talking, with my brother, who's obviously I've talked about before, who's a United fan, and I was giving him a lot of shit. And he and now they have to sell some of their players to have money to bring in new ones. So, like there's already talk about Bruno going to Saudi and stuff like that, Garnacho wanting out and stuff. And really, these are the few players they were able to rely on. So that's another team that has to make sure every single, low price signing now they do hits. And you do not get top world class players at low prices. It's just not happening. It is a jackpot for Spurs, and you know, honestly, I don't know why I was like, the Spurs thing. I could not care less. I'm very neutral feelings against Spurs, aside from Richarlison over there. Very like neutral feelings for them. But the fact that them winning against United makes United miserable. Meanwhile, making Arsenal fans miserable because now on paper, really, if you look at it, Spurs have had a better season and they're in the Champions League and they finally won a trophy and stuff like that. I think that was like the gift that keeps on giving for me, seeing the misery of those two fan bases as opposed to Spurs fans celebrating and stuff. But I'm sure we'll talk about it. Is a hard situation for United. It really is. And you can kind of tell it's very quiet and depressing, and I'm loving it. I mean, really, who knew the roles would be swapped like this? But it's fun. It's definitely this side is more fun when you're on top and the other guys are like struggling. This is definitely much more fun when things were the other way around. But that'll be it for me today. Like I say, I will be here with the watch along. I'm sure there'll be some guys hopping on as well. We'll be here for the pre-match and the game. And the moment the game ends, we will probably end the broadcast, and then we might hop back on, maybe drunker than normal. So that'll be a risky proposition, but we might hop back on afterwards, maybe like talk about the game and the trophy celebration and stuff like that. Depends on who's still sober enough to go on air and all that kind of stuff. But definitely we'll be here for the watch along. So do tune in for that. If you have not done so already, give us a like and a subscribe and all that kind of good stuff. I've gotten a lot of followers recently, so thank you guys. Really do appreciate it. Please share the news, send the invites, grab a friend by the ear and drag him over here. And I will see you guys on Sunday for the pre-match. Have an awesome Saturday. Enjoy your weekend, and then we'll enjoy Sunday all together over here. Take care.